Hey guys, welcome to the Blue Podcast. This is the Gradient Show with me, Mackers, Ben, and Tom. How are you boys doing today?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How about yourself?
Pretty good. It's been a pretty good morning. Today, obviously, we'll be discussing the Moon Knight episode 1. Spoilers ahead, just in case. But before we get into that, we are an ambassador for a new app called LinkMe. It's an app that makes juggling social media accounts easier than ever. Make sure to download the app and make an account with our link down below, as well as checking out our merch. That would be greatly appreciated. Well, a different type of MCU TV show. Obviously, pretty much every single one has had a different style, obviously with a different director. But this one is certainly makes you think and wonder what the hell is going on for the entire time. I'll start with Tom. How did you find it?
I really enjoyed it, to be honest. Yeah, like you mentioned, it's completely different style to the others. I think you almost get the sense of mystery that you got from WandaVision, but without any of the same sort of format or cinematography that they used in WandaVision. I personally really enjoyed it. I thought Oscar Isaac was fantastic. I even think Ethan Hawke, obviously, plays Arthur Harrow. He was really good as well. I think that opening scene, obviously, spoilers ahead, but yeah, that opening scene where he's just cutting up smashing up glass and then sprinkling it in his shoes. It just immediately before the Marvel title sequence, it just makes you go like, what on earth what is happening here? Who is this guy? Like, he's just mental, clearly. And obviously get through and you realize he's an avatar of Amit, and it sort of starts to make sense. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
How about you, Ben?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I think Oscar Isaac in particular, I'd like to in other things, but he's a really good actor, Oscar Isaac. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, like you, maybe slightly different in the sense that obviously all the shows have been different styles, but like I've said before the podcast started, it's still very Marvel-y. Like it's still got the same beats as a Marvel thing has. Like even though they're different styles, they still have the same sort of things going on. That's not a bad thing, but I think it's just like even though they can change sort of the styling of it as much as they want, it'll still be very much of that Marvel ilk, if you know what I mean. Like in terms of where the sort of the direction of it, but like still like you say, I enjoyed it, and I thought Oscar Isaac was really good.
Yeah, I agree more with. Well, I guess I don't really. I think for me, I don't really care if it's Marvel-y. I just quite enjoyed it.
No. I mean, I like to be like same. I enjoyed it, but I think it's good to have that awareness because I think people like reviewers come out and say it's a masterpiece. I think something needs to be a masterpiece. It's got to be something like The Dark Knight, or that ilk. It's not that. Like it's still good, really good, really enjoyed it, but it's got to be like that upper echelon of something. It's got to have that.
It's a bit like the new Batman movie in a sense.
Yeah.
Which is what that's done. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like the new Batman has had to do something completely different to be different from the Dark Knight to then be good.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I do agree with Ben though. There is definitely that sort of the same Marvel jokes and the Marvel style of humor, if you would. It's like the drops his like he's on the floor terrified, but there's an old lady, so he's lost his contact lens. It's it's funny, but it's like it's easy to process humor, so it appeals to like a mass audience.
Yeah, it's definitely humor for a big audience, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very digestible, easy to interpret and understand humor. Yeah.
You don't have to be super smart to understand the humor behind it.
But it's just Sorry.
Okay. I was just going to say, obviously, the trailer footage, most of that is in the first episode. So obviously, that does leave a lot of open doors for what is to come with Moon Knight in the following episodes. It's a bit different to. Well, obviously, I guess they will probably do a trailer for episode 2, and like they have done for the other stuff. But I feel like more was revealed in the trailers for previous shows than in this one, and that might help to create that mystery that they're trying to create and this kind of horror sense that they're trying to do for it. I don't know if you guys agree.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, throughout the trailers, you just really only see Stephen Grant. You get sort of hints of Mark Spector and obviously Moon Knight himself as sort of the alter egos. But it's mostly Stephen Grant in the trailer. And obviously for this episode, it's all Stephen Grant. I mean, you get a bit of Mark Spector in the mirror, but that's literally about it. I think it would be interesting to see going forward them do perhaps even the next episode is like Mark Spector related, like it all revolves around him and sort of the backstory of, because in this episode we're sort of like flung into this world where even we're Stephen Grant, essentially we have no idea what's going on. He doesn't have any idea what's going on. And I think the next episode would probably be more of a like an explaining episode where they have Mark Spector and obviously Layla, who we heard on the telephone. I think that is where they'll sort of take it in the next episode and sort of, again, Arthur Harrow as well. Like, how did he become an avatar of Amit and how did he get the tattoo and that sort of thing? I think it'll explain that.
An interesting thought I had with the episodes, which they could do, I'm not sure they will, but obviously there are 5 personalities of Mark Spector. There'll be 6 episodes, I'm pretty sure, if they're following the same vein as...
Yeah, there's 6.
They could do the first 5 episodes, each one's a different aspect. Possibly. Obviously, you got Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, Jake Lockley, Mr. Knight and Moon Knight, and then obviously have the final episode, big one. I don't know what they do for that. It's just a thought. I don't think they'll do it, but it could have been an interesting take on it.
I think something that did cross my mind is that, you know, like in this episode, you've said the spoiler warning, there's bits where he like trips out and then his mark, but it never shows it. It just kind of cuts back to when back when. And I mean, they might not do it, but they could in the next episode. They'll fill in the blanks, and it'll be all from Mark's side perspective.
Yeah, that could be an interesting thing. Yeah, well, so it's like it's the same episode, but no Stephen Grant. All Mark.
Yeah, exactly.
That could be an interesting take. To be fair, it'd be something that there'd be a bit of a risk. I feel, obviously, because some people be like, "Oh, you're just doing the same thing." But,
yeah. I mean, I've seen shows do it before.
Gap, obviously, in this episode as well, the jump from Friday to Sunday, which they played off as both humor and kind of a bit eerie. But yeah, I think they definitely use Mark Spector for that period. Yeah.
Also,
I think.
Go on.
I was just going to say, I think you know what you're saying. It's sort of they've not revealed as much in the trailers and stuff. And stuff like there's a bit more of the mystery. I think I mean, obviously there is that as well, but it's also a lot easier for them to do that when it's a new character, because the previous shows have all been returning characters, so people know them. Like, well, yeah, that's them. But with this, it's a new character, so there is the mystery around it anyway. You know, they're obviously the comics and that, but like it's a new sort of live action interpretation, so there is that mystery anyway. So it's a lot easier for them to do that.
No, yeah, and I mean, to help with the mystery, I think as well is they are taking stuff from the comics, obviously, but it is quite different. Obviously, the main ones for me would be Arthur Harrow is completely different from the comics, and Stephen Grant isn't a millionaire like he is in the comics. Well, he could still be, but currently he is definitely not a millionaire.
It would be unlikely at this stage, yeah.
Yeah, if he just wakes up one day going, "Oh yeah, I've got millions in the bank," I doubt it. But they're the 2 main differences. I do want to touch on Arthur Harrow. Obviously, you said Tom at the start that he put glass into his shoes. That could be so in the comics he's a doctor. He's possible Nobel Prize winner, I think, and he's all about pain, getting rid of pain and stuff like that. So I thought that was an interesting take to then. They may never touch on the pain thing, but to have him putting glass in his shoes, and then he's just happily walking about, really, is kind of him. I haven't got any pain, like, which is what he was doing in the comics. Like, there was at one point an army of people that had no pain, and Moon Knight like broke one of their arms and they didn't even feel it. So, like, they could go down that route with his minions, or I think they're going down the much more mystical Egyptian route with the whole thing, which is very different, obviously, to the comics. But yeah, having that glass in his shoes to show he feels no pain is, it was pretty messed up straight from the start to just go straight with that. You're thinking he's just chilling, having a nice glass of something, and then he's walking around with glass in his feet, which is interesting. I don't know what you guys think about Arthur Harrow so far.
Well, I think with that first scene, like we mentioned, it just sort of sets the tone for the rest of the episode, and you know that this is not going to be your average Marvel show. They're definitely stepping it up. They obviously showed that with it's got a 16+ rating on Disney Plus, which none of the others do. I think that sort of signifies it's going to be a lot more like Daredevil and Punisher and that sort of thing. But with Arthur Harrow, like, yeah, he's been quite mysterious so far. I mean, he obviously knows who Stephen Grant is, and I think he's fully aware at this point that he has the other personalities, and that I think when we first met him, or when Stephen Grant first met him, he knew that he was Moon Knight because he obviously stole the, I can't remember what they called it, but he stole that, and obviously he was fully aware that like Moon Knight was in there, but then Stephen Grant didn't know that. So obviously he tracked down Stephen Grant and then did, I don't know how you would call it, but his judgment of him essentially. And we don't actually see the judgment. The camera sort of pans away. So we don't know whether the judgment was bad or not. But yeah, he's been very mysterious at the start, and it'll be interesting to see where they take his character. Because like you said, he's very different to the comics. And I think even just adding the no pain with the glasses, it's like a nice little nod to the comic nerds out there like yourself.
Yes. What do you think, Ben?
They're very much leaning into sort of the cultish side of it. So it's all people. It's very much that sort of cultish, that ultra religious. People just follow him blindly. Is like a form of sort of like almost a messiah sort of thing. Like that's very much what they're leaning into, because I mean, I don't know it the comics, but like you say, in the comics is the Doctor and stuff like that. So they've obviously thought about it and gone, it's not gonna quite work in a sort of live action setting. Him just being a doctor, like chilling like by himself.
Yeah, well, in the comics as well, he was part of Auschwitz doing tests on human subjects.
Yeah. I don't think that it's very
stuff, probably.
Yeah, they're not going to stray into that territory, and it's very, very, touchy subject that. So they're going to stay well clear of that. So I mean, even though, it's that people might be like, well, they should have stuck to the comics and stuff like that. Like, it's stuff like that. It's understandable. So
I think, to be fair as well, he's like, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, he's a very minor character in the comics, maybe only appearing in, is it 1 or 2 comic runs? So for them to sort of pluck him out of obscurity, really, they definitely had to change up his character a lot. And in particular, like with sort of getting rid of pain and stuff, I think it's maybe less applicable to sort of especially with origin stories like this is for Moon Knight, you sort of need the anti-hero, the anti-Moon Knight, rather than
they're going definitely down more this is a counterpart to Moon Knight.
Exactly. And that's why linking him being like another Avatar would make a lot more sense than him being a doctor with a complicated backstory who's like almost could be seen as a hero from his own perspective. I don't think they needed to do that. I think they went the right route.
I think they're probably still going down the route of he thinks he's a hero in his own right, because obviously, as he says in the in the near the end of the show, like, it could have stopped Hitler. Did they mention Auschwitz in that? Actually, I can't remember, but they mentioned a few horrific things, and obviously in his eyes right now, even though he's obviously judging people and killing people, I think a pretty typical twist would be that, what's her name, Amit, will not necessarily be a good god, because obviously if her own avatar back in the day, which is obviously her avatar now is Arthur Harrow, but back in the day obviously it was someone else betrayed her, she must not actually be as good as he thinks, because he just killed a random old lady for no reason, even though she'd been good her whole life, just because apparently in the future she won't be. So that's a very interesting take on it. So yeah, it's kind of going to be Khonshu versus Amit in this, isn't it? The two gods battling it out in terms of who's good, who's bad. I think there will be some bad sides of Khonshu, Like, I don't think he'll be perfect, but it'll be more of a better of two evils situation, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's why they've gone like the sort of darker, more gritty route, isn't it? With Moon Knight, it's like you might not agree with his methods per se, but he probably is doing it for like the greater good, you'd argue. And I guess that's where we'll probably get like a differing perspective from the show. It's like Arthur Harrow and Amit's version of the greater good versus Khonshu and Moon Knight's version of the greater good.
Yeah. So on Moon Knight himself, the actual Moon Knight, obviously we saw Stephen put his jaw back in place somehow, which was the sound, the noises of that was pretty graphic. I won't lie, that was pretty grim. Just the sound of his jaw just moving back into place, and obviously I think that's more of a teaser of what's to come in terms of the gore. Because obviously, if it is a 16+, I wouldn't say that episode was 16+. So there is obviously going to be some more 16+ stuff coming up in the future, I think. But Moon Knight obviously seems to have super healing. He seems to be able to heal himself pretty well. And super strength. I mean, clearly beating up that jackal at the end. Fell out of a huge building by the looks of things. And, well, looks like he punched the heads in of some guards as well when Mark came ahead and then Stephen came back. Obviously, going through a supernatural route, I think that is pretty standard in the comics for him to have super strength, because I was reading where he ripped a steel door off its hinges at one point in the comics. So, do you think they'll lean too much on the superpowers, or it'll be more of a wits between gods?
I'd like to see them lean into the superpowers. Obviously, him going forward, hopefully we'll see a lot of him with perhaps Blade and then maybe Dane Whitman from the Eternals. And I think that they'll focus on gods for this series, but they'll also want to really establish him as being a superhero, because obviously they'll use him as a superhero going forward, sort of like appearing in projects, rather than like every time he appears, they don't want to ram the Egyptian deities down the audience's throat every single time. So I think they'll try and establish superpowers while it's also providing like a background basis of the gods.
And also with the gods, obviously bringing in these new like Khonshu and Amit will obviously bring a supernatural factor to the whole thing, but then also ask questions of what are they in the grand scheme of the MCU? Because obviously we've had the Eternals with the Celestials, we've had Thanos, and we've had the Deviants and all that. How do they fit into the whole scheme? Obviously, Asgardians as well, they're a type of god. What are these beings in comparison? Are they more powerful? Are they less powerful? I don't think they'll necessarily answer that in this, but obviously it brings in a load of storylines for the future, unless they just decide to keep it completely enclosed in Moon Knight stuff. Is just that's the only time we'll touch the Egyptian gods. It doesn't have to be anything to do with anything else, because obviously I don't think they'll do much other heroes in this from what I've seen so far, but they might tease it at the end, like a Blade appears or something. If you guys agree.
Yeah.
Anything from you, Bill?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think they're very much they might they very much set the tone of the show in the first episode as leaning into the like Egyptian sort of mystical stuff. But like in terms of sort of showing his like powers and stuff, like they obviously will show that as well. But I do think that they are going to do. They will focus on that, like you say, that struggle between the gods and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see them explore sort of what the Egyptian gods are, because obviously the Norse gods are the Asgardians, because they've not really established like a belief set in the MCU. Obviously, like people that believe in the Norse gods, while the Norse gods are explained by Asgardians, they've not covered the Greek gods yet. Obviously, they're quite prominent in the comics. But it'd be interesting to see whether they're just going to write like Khonshu and Amit off as genuinely there are like Egyptian deities and they're just gods, or whether they're, as the Asgardians are, just aliens from another planet. Because obviously we see Khonshu, like Khonshu's here. So it will be interesting, very interesting to see how they deal with that and how they sort of explain it away.
Yeah.
Also, Khonshu is voiced by F. Murray Abraham. Sounds very good. I won't lie. Does sound like a good voice choice. We'll leave Layla for next episode. We'll wrap it up here. Obviously,
they've got many. They've got like you say, they've got options in how they sort of explain the gods and stuff like that. So, yeah.
They're clearly bringing not the celestials, but celestial powers into it even more nowadays. Because obviously now you've done the snap, you kind of got to get bigger and bigger realistically to keep up with the whole thing. But we'll wrap it up there. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I think we're going to try and do a podcast every episode. We'll try our best to try and get it out as soon as possible as well. Obviously, this will be out on the Wednesday so that you guys can get the best content and it's fresh in our minds. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like. If you're new around here, please hit that subscribe button. It helps us out more than you can imagine. Check out our merch and our socials, all linked down below. And we'll probably see you next Wednesday for another grading show. Cheers.